On November 29, 1970, a father and his two young daughters were hiking through a remote valley outside Bergen, Norway, when they found a woman's body lying among blackened rocks. She was burned almost beyond recognition. Every label had been cut from her clothing. Every fingerprint on her belongings had been wiped clean. When police finally traced her to a train station locker, they found 2 suitcases containing 9 passports, 9 different names, 9 different identities, all belonging to the same woman. 55 years later, nobody knows who she really was. This is the story of the Isdal Woman. The valley where she was found is called Isdalen. In Norwegian, it means Ice Valley. Locals had another name for it, older and darker, Death Valley, after a string of suicides that had taken place there over the decades. On that Sunday morning, a man was hiking through the valley with his 2 daughters when they came upon her. She was lying on her back among rocks, blackened by fire, her body burned almost beyond recognition, though strangely, only the front of her had burned. Her back was largely untouched. Scattered around her were a shattered bottle, a pair of rubber boots, an empty water container half melted from the heat, and a fur hat that wasn't in fashion anywhere in Norway. Every single clothing tag had been removed, every label cut away. The initial autopsy found soot deep in her lungs and airways. She had still been breathing when the fire started. Her blood contained a significant quantity of sleeping pills. The official theory formed almost immediately: suicide, but almost nothing about the scene fit that explanation cleanly. 3 days after the body was discovered, an attendant at the Bergen train station reported 2 suitcases that had been left unclaimed in a locker for over a week. Inside, police found an extraordinary collection of items: multiple wigs, prescription-free eyeglasses, cosmetics and skin cream with every label peeled away, foreign currency from Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom, several silver teaspoons identical to one found at the death scene, and 9 passports, each bearing a different alias, each with a photograph of the same woman: Genevieve Lancier, Claudia Tielt, Claudia Nielsen, Alexia Zarna-Merchez, Vera Jarl, Fenella Lork, Elizabeth Lienhauer. Name after name, identity after identity, all of them fabricated, all of them belonging to the same person. Investigators found a single readable fingerprint on a pair of sunglasses tucked inside the luggage. It matched the body. This, at least, confirmed the suitcases were hers. The most unsettling item in the luggage was a small black notebook written entirely in a numeric code that investigators never fully cracked. What they could reconstruct read like a diary of movement, a trail of hotels across Norway and Europe, each one visited under a different alias. When police began interviewing hotel staff who remembered her, the picture that emerged was almost cinematic in its strangeness. She spoke multiple languages fluently: French, German, possibly Flemish, with an accent no one could quite place. She was polite but intensely private. She frequently requested room changes, sometimes moving multiple times within the same hotel. She paid exclusively in cash. And after meals, staff noticed she would carefully wipe down glasses, cutlery, and surfaces, removing her own fingerprints as a matter of habit, in an era before most people had ever heard the term. One witness account proved especially haunting. A 26-year-old hiker later told police that 5 days before the body was discovered, he had encountered a well-dressed woman in the same valley, visibly terrified, walking quickly, glancing behind her. Following a short distance behind her, he said, were two men in dark coats. Before he could process what he was seeing, all three had vanished from sight. Was it her? The timeline lined up, but like almost everything else in this case, it could never be confirmed. The Norwegian police pursued the investigation seriously for a time. Nearly 100 witnesses were eventually interviewed. But as weeks turned into months with no identity, no next of kin, and no clear crime to prosecute, official interest faded. The case was quietly closed. The body, never identified, was buried in a Bergen cemetery under a small marker that reads only "Ukjent kvinne," unknown woman. For decades, the case existed mostly as local legend, the kind of story Bergen residents told each other without expecting an answer. Then, in 2016, a team of investigative journalists at the Norwegian broadcaster NRK reopened the file, digging through archives, re-interviewing surviving witnesses, and pursuing forensic techniques that hadn't existed in 1970. Isotope analysis of her teeth revealed something significant. Chemical signatures suggesting she had grown up somewhere along the French-German border, likely in the region near Nuremberg. Information investigators in 1970 had no way of ever obtaining. But identifying where she came from didn't answer the larger question hanging over the entire case. Why did a woman need 9 fake identities, wigs, disguises, and the tradecraft to erase her own fingerprints after every meal? The most persistent theory is espionage. 1970 sat squarely in the Cold War, and Bergen, a Norwegian port city, held real strategic value. NATO conducted military exercises in the region. Some researchers have connected the Isdal Woman's movements to a period of heightened intelligence activity in Scandinavia. If she was a spy, the disguises, the cash payments, the obsessive fingerprint wiping, and the coded notebook would all make sense as basic operational tradecraft. And if she had been discovered or had outlived her usefulness to whoever she worked for, a staged suicide would be a chillingly efficient way to erase a problem. Norwegian police have never confirmed a connection to intelligence work, but they have also never definitively ruled one out. The official verdict of suicide raises its own uncomfortable questions. If she killed herself, why remove every label from her own clothing beforehand? Why carry 9 separate identities to her death? And why was the fire scene so precisely one-sided? Her front severely burned, her back barely touched. A detail that some investigators have argued is inconsistent with someone simply lying down and setting themselves alight. Other researchers have proposed she may have worked in a less clandestine but still secretive profession, a smuggler or a black market currency trader, someone whose entire livelihood depended on never being traceable. It doesn't fully explain the code or the witnesses who described men following her, but it's a theory that doesn't require an intelligence agency at all. Only a woman with dangerous secrets and dangerous company. In 2017, Norwegian authorities exhumed her remains for further DNA testing, hoping new technology might finally return a name. As of this recording, no identification has been confirmed and made public. Her code has never been broken. Her 9 names have never led to a 10th. her real one. The two men in dark coats, if they ever existed at all, were never found. Somewhere, over half a century ago, a woman built an entire life out of disguises so complete that even her death couldn't unmake them. She is buried in Bergen under a name that isn't a name at all, just an admission that no one, to this day, knows who she was. If this case pulled you in, subscribe to Cold Case Vault. Every week we open another file the world has never solved. And let me know in the comments, spy, smuggler, or something we haven't even considered. Who do you think the Isdal Woman really was?